Okay, I'm Rodney Garner, Master Beekeeper and Honey Judge. Okay, we're going to be going through some alternate methods of doing this besides grafting. Okay, you use the same colony as your starter and your finisher, which is the way I prefer to do it. What we do is we will move all of our open brood to the top. We'll put a queen excluder into it, give them a day or so to let the bees equalize, and then we will put in what's called a cloak board. And what we'll do is we will separate that so that the queen is in the bottom and her pheromones cannot get up to the top, and then we can put our frame with our grafts in the top. Then once I've got them started, then we can pull this divider out here. There's still a queen excluder in between, but what will happen is then the pheromones can go up there, but those bees on the top will faithfully build out those cells. So that's one method to do it. By using a cloak board, you're blocking the queen's pheromones. The bees at top think, oh, we're queenless, we need to build these cells, and it works out fairly well. The cloak board, like I said, has a built-in queen excluder right there, and you've got an insert that goes in between to block it off. I have used this method. It does work. I've got another method that is used by Bob Benny. If you go out to his YouTube channel about 3 years ago, he did an entire video on how he does it. And it works very similar to this, except he's not using a cloak board, he's using a double screen board to prevent the queen pheromones from getting up to the top. And this way you're not having to do a separate swarm box and then a finisher colony. You do it all with one. Like I said, when you sit there and you put that in, you put the divider in, the upper box is queenless. They don't get pheromones, and they go into emergency queen rearing mode, and they will start your cells faithfully. And like I said, it eliminates the need for the swarm box. 24 hours after you put the cells in, they should be started, and you can pull the divider out and let them finish up the cells for you. Anyway, it says 10 days after the graft, you want to pull those cells out, put them into your colonies you want to put them into, where you need a queen, and let those cells finish up. You know, they're already capped at that point. All the bees are doing is keeping them warm. And when that queen emerges from the cell, since that queen emerged in the hive, they will accept her immediately as the queen. And then she goes through her 5 to 10 days maturing, goes out on her mating flight, and about 5 days after that, she starts laying eggs. So that works out really well. Once again, be careful with how you handle the cells. You want to keep them vertical. Don't lay them on their side or anything like that. And then you can put them into your nukes or your queenless colony you need a queen in. Okay, like it says, be careful how you do it, and brush the bees off. Don't shake them. And then you can go ahead and harvest your cells and use them however you need them. Like I say, keep them vertical. Don't tip them over more than about 20 degrees or so, because you can damage that queen that's in there, that's in the process of going through its metamorphosis. Okay, you can candle them. Basically take it and shine a light through them, see if there is a queen in there. If you've got one that you don't see a queen in, you can go ahead and discard that cell. And I usually have, about 5% that I discard. So, like I said, this method of raising queens works pretty well. And like I said, you candle them, just take a nice bright flashlight and just shine it through it, and you'll see the shadow in there of the queen. It's like people who sit there and raise chickens, they candle the eggs to see if there's a chick forming in there, so they can call those out. Also, since we're using these plastic cups, you can sit there and see the royal jelly up in the top of it, and you should still see some there. If you don't see any at all, then you don't have a queen in there, or it was underfed and will be an inferior queen, and you want to call it and not use that one. It says call any cells with no royal jelly, because that queen has gone hungry and will be an inferior or smaller queen. And as you can see here, you can see the royal jelly in the top of these still. Here's one that doesn't have any in it. There's some in that one, some in that one. But you notice that cell's a little bit smaller. So you got any really small ones, you want to call them out, because you're not going to have a good queen there. There we go. Okay, you can see how these cells are really nice. These were well cared for. They were well fed, and you can see they got, they're nice big cells. So these are. There's another method we're going to show here in a minute, and these were created by that method. It's called cell punch. Okay, here you are. It says discard any misshapen ones. Like you sit there and you got one that's really short, kind of, and not shaped like the other ones. Those usually are ones that don't have viable queens. Usually the biggest thing I see is they're undersized. They're about half as big as the other ones. And usually you don't have, the queen didn't make it. Oh, there we go. And so there's another picture there. Okay. After you sit there and you do your grafting, you want to transfer these cells into an incubator to keep them warm and at the proper humidity, because they want about 85, 90 degrees. They want 50% or higher humidity. And you can use this to transport your queen cells out to your yard if you've got, like if you're out a ways from it. And that'll also keep them from being damaged. My mating yard is about less than 100 feet from my house. So I do my grafting and everything, just walk them out there, put them in, and then when the cells are ready to harvest, I'll already have the mating nukes set up, and just go ahead and just put the cells in the mating nukes once they're fully formed, and let the bees take care of it from there. And I've got a couple of small plastic mating newts over here for people to look at. I use those, and I use a standard 5-frame nuke. So you don't have to have any special mating nukes or anything. This standard 5-frame nuke works perfectly fine. I just got people that want the small ones, so I supply small ones. And when you put the cell in, you can just drop it in between the bars, and where it won't fall down in there. Or you can pull the frame out and then press that into the wax itself towards the top of the frame, being careful not to damage the cell. And that works well also. I usually just drop them down between the bars, and I'll put usually 2 in a hive. And unless I'm going to be selling a queen, and then I'll put it into a mating nuke with just 1. And then once she's been laying for about 2 or 3 weeks, and I know that I'm seeing good brood pattern, then I can pull her out and cage her and sell her. And like I said, what to do with your new queens? I like to use cells for requeening hives. I get better acceptance that way. My acceptance runs 85–90%, where when I sit there and put a mated queen in there, it usually runs 10–15% lower as far as my total acceptance. I don't like pulling the existing queen 2 to 3 days ahead of time. Usually I'll pull her today, and I'll put a queen cell in there tomorrow. What happens is a lot of times with that time frame, they will go into emergency queen rearing mode, and you'll have a bunch of queen cells started. Of course, putting a finished cell in there, once she emerges, she will kill those other ones off if the worker bees hadn't already done it. Do not kill your queen before you have queen cells ready. I know some people that have done that. But I usually sit there and do it the day before, and that way I can go through the frames real quick and look for where they're starting to build queen cells, and I can go ahead and crush them and leave them with just the 1 queen cell that I give them, which usually works out pretty good because she emerges usually within about 4 or 5 days, and they accept her. Okay, here's an example where I said you kind of push it into the wax. And you see there where that cup has been pressed in without damaging this section. Like I say, just do it on a brood frame, and just push it in enough to hold it in the vertical position, and then put that in, and then close your frames back up, because the frame next to it will help hold it in there. And always keep it vertical. Back up a little here, maybe we'll pick this up better. Okay, requeening an existing colony. You can use the cages. I like to use the cell protectors. When you're putting that cell into there, be careful not to damage it. I like using these if I'm basically not going to be able to sit there and pull that cell on about the 12th, 13th day, because if you have a queen that emerges early, she will kill the rest of the cells. She'll destroy them. We had that happen in 2009, and we had that happen year before last. So when you graft today, either myself or Bill will need to look at it under the microscope to make sure you've got young enough larvae. What happened year before last is somebody sat there and grafted larvae that were too old, put them in the incubator without us looking at them first, and we had a queen that emerged on what should have been our 12th or 13th day. And yeah, she went on a rampage and took out 75% of the queen cells before we found out what was going on. So the cell protectors can help with when you've got adjoining ones if one emerges early. When you're requeening existing colonies, if you're using a mated queen, then you'll have her in a little cage, and it takes about 3 or 4 days for them to accept her. Sometimes they will not accept her. And if you find that, you need to go back through the colony, go look at every frame, look for queen cells, look for queen cups that have a larva in them, and also look to make sure you don't have a second queen in there. I had that happen this week. I sit there and got queens in on Wednesday. I sit there, went into one of them, and sit there, there's my marked queen, pulled her out, stuck the queen cage in there. I did not pull the plug on it. So I went back yesterday, and I'm sitting there, and the bees are still trying to get to her to kill her. And I sit there and said, okay, let me go through here and start looking for, see if I missed a queen cell. And I sit there, and about the third frame I pulled out, there was a queen. So basically, I had a mother queen and a daughter queen in there. So I grabbed her, marked her, pulled the queen cage out, and went and put it into another, split off another nuke for her to go into. And hopefully, when I check them tomorrow, things will be much better. But anyway, you want the queen to emerge in that colony so that she will be accepted, and you'll have a much stronger colony at the end of the day. If you're increasing, it says 3 to 5 frames. Like I said, I use, I've got a bunch of the easy nukes that I use, the plastic ones, and I just sit there and cut out a 5-frame nuke. What I usually do is I'll have a couple of brood frames, one frame of it's got, and 1 or 2 frames got honey and pollen on them, and usually 1 empty frame of drawn comb is what I put in there. And then I can sit there and put my queen cell in there and let her emerge. She'll have the brood frames that are in there, plus there's an additional frame for her to lay in. And I usually give them, in the nuke like that, I usually give them about 30 days. That way I've gotten the first generation of her bees in the colony. I can see, make sure they got good brood patterns and everything, and at that point I'll move them into a 10-frame box and let them expand from there. If I'm selling a queen, I don't give them quite that much time, but I give them enough time that I'm seeing a very good brood pattern, and I'm starting to see the new bees starting to emerge. Then I'll go ahead and pull her, mark her, put her in a cage, and deliver her to whoever's buying her. I don't sell that many queens. Most of what I do is for internal use, but I use the same techniques for whether I'm doing them for myself or going to sell one. Here's a mating nuke. Like I said, I've got a couple over here you can look at. You get little bitty ones like this one that hold these little small frames. Sometimes it's a little bit of work to get the bees to draw them out. Usually what I do is they've got an internal feeder. I'll sit there and fill that with syrup, and I'll sit there and shake bees off of a brood frame into there, and then put the top on it, and with the feeder in there, they will start drawing comb. You need to make sure that your frames are pre-waxed so that they'll draw them out nice and pretty for you. Anyway, for your mating nukes, they should be established with, let's say, 2 to 3 frames of sealed brood, 1 of honey, 1 of pollen, and whatever bees are on the frames when you put them in there. And sometimes I'll shake some extra bees in. just to make sure that there's plenty of nurse bees in there to take care of the queen. Then you add a mature queen cell, and usually I come back in about 10 days to 2 weeks, and at that point I'm looking for a mated queen. And if I find a queen in there, sometimes by that point she is starting to lay, or if I don't see her, but if I see a queen in there, then and she's nice size and all, then I say, okay, yeah, then I come back in about 5 days after that, I'm looking for eggs. And so that works out very. Usually when I go in that first time, look, I'm just looking for the queen. And because I don't expect to find eggs at that point. Sometimes I do, most of the time I don't. I'm just looking to make sure that she did make it back from her mating flight. Timetable. When we graft, we're looking for a 12 to 24 hour old larva. That way the queen will emerge in 10 to 12 days. Even though it says 11 there. 5 to 7 for her to mate, and then it says 10 to 15, but I found it usually runs about 7 before she starts laying. But that time frame, those time frames are fairly accurate. So if you stick to that, you'll see exactly what you're after. Like I said, I'll let them lay in the frames for about 3 weeks. That way I've got the first generation emerging, and I know at that point I can definitely look at brood patterns and make sure they're what we're looking for. The longer she lays in the nuke and her pheromones are there, at that point she is producing the most pheromones she will produce in her entire life. And the bees actually will, they're better acceptance, and the hive is better organized, and that way you have fewer problems. Like I said, most of what I do is for internal use, so once I get them going, they go into a bigger box because I'm doing increase or replacements. I usually try to wait until after she's mated before I mark them, and the color tells us how old it is. There's 5 colors, 1 through 5 for years 1 through 5, and then 6 through 10 you reuse those colors. So white was for in our case 2021. And now here it is 2026, we're using white again. Next year's color will be, last year was blue, next year will be yellow. And it makes it easier to spot her, and if all of a sudden you open a hive up and you're expecting a marked queen and you don't find one, you know the bees have replaced your queen and you don't have your original queen. And here's your colors. Practice on drones, and whatever color you use for your drones, make sure it's not this year's color. So this year, do not use a white pen to practice on drones, or you'll sit there and you'll be in looking for a queen with a white dot on it, and you'll have 24 drones running around there with white dots on them. So use a different color. That way, if you see a drone that's got a mark on it, at least you know it's not the queen, because it's going to be the wrong color. And I don't clip wings. It's but if you do clip wings on a queen, you clip both wings on one side, and that way if you do have a swarm, they're not going to go very far because she can't fly well. And usually they'll end up within about 10-15 feet of the hive, either on the ground or in a bush relatively low and easy to get to. She's not going to be 90 foot up in an oak tree, which is where most of my swarms seem to end up. As I said, once you're proficient at going in and grabbing that drone, taking it, either holding it, the way I prefer to do it, is I got her by the wings, put my finger up, put her down on it. She will sit there and grip your finger, and you just come up on both sides and grab two legs on each, at least two legs on each side. Then you mark her, grab her by the wings again, and you can sit her right back down on top of the frames. And that's what it works for me. Some people will sit there and take her and try to and hold her and then mark her. I prefer not to do that. I'm always afraid I'm going to damage her, because all it takes is a little bit of squeeze on the abdomen, and you've basically killed your queen. I said, pick her off gently and by the wings, and you can grasp her like this. I prefer to sit there and do that and make sure that you get legs on both sides, or if you only get them on one side, she's going to sit there and start trying to get away and go in circles, and you'll rip a leg off. And at that point, the bees will see her as a damaged queen, and they will start working on replacing her. But anyway, these paint pens, be careful with them. Usually what I do is I sit there and I make sure it's writing well, and I'll give it a quick shake before I start doing it in case there's excess paint in there, because I have gone to mark a queen, all of a sudden it just goes glop, and I just killed my queen, because now she's got paint all over her thorax, all over her wings, her abdomen, and you don't want that. So like I said, I usually sit there and take it and just give it a quick shake to make sure there's not a bunch of paint up in there that's going to come out when I don't want it to. And like I said, here it says, here's the method about using your holding her like this by the legs. And like I said, I'd sit there and just come up with my thumb and my other finger and sit there and grab at least two legs on each side. And works out quite well. Okay, clipping wings. I just went over why you would do that, and you want to clip it about halfway down. And like I said, that way she can't fly. And if you have a swarm, like I said, they're not going very far, and they're going to be very close. And I have sit there and had to recover swarms off the ground. Usually they're in a bush or something very close to the ground, because she can't fly well. So they're not going to go very far. Most of them are usually, from my experience where I've had clipped wings, they usually only end up 10 or 15 feet from the hive. Makes them a lot easier to recover. Questions? Yes, sir.
Do people alternate wings if they clip for any reason?
Yeah, I know some beekeepers that will clip. This year they'll clip the left wing. Next year they'll clip the right wing. Also, the two beekeepers I know do it. Only use one color of marking pen. So all theirs got white dots on them, and they look at the wings to tell if it's this year's queen or last year's queen. And they requeen every other year. Anybody else? Okay.